I got inspiration for this dress from a green flare dress I saw on It's Prissy, a celebrity on Instagram. It was designed by KK brand. I decided to give mine a twist by including a pleated flounce on the arm and also shortening the layer of flare along the hem. You may be wondering why I had to split the front open to include a closure. It's because this is a part of the Style My Bomb series, and we also want our outfit to be versatile enough and useful for breastfeeding. You're welcome to Kema Freak. My name is Kemi Omorugbe. Enjoy the video. I'll be starting this up by putting my fabric on bias fold. What it just simply means is creating a 45-degree angle on one tip of your fabric rather than cutting straight. Okay, that's on the straight grain line. Now there are two ways to go about this. Is either you take the same measurement from that apex on the two sides and mark it out, so that way you have a somewhat slanted line as the top of your piece, or what I wanted to say pattern. Guys, you are doing this using the freehand technique. You can actually do this on pattern paper before transferring to fabric as well, but in this case I am working directly on my fabric. Another way to treat this is to place your pattern curve like so, in such a way that the straight or the longer side of it is at 90 degree with the folded end of the fabric. What it just means is you have a perpendicular line to the folded part of your fabric. So that's the one I'll be using here. Wherever you decide to start treating your fabric from, just ensure that that line you just drew is wide enough to cover the shoulder width divided by 2, because I'm drafting the front only currently. Oh my god, guys, at this point I realized I lost about 20 minutes of clips and I almost cried while editing this, but I'll try my best to explain everything I did on this front pattern to give me this look you're seeing. I started by marking 2 inches away from the center front because I needed to have an extra 2 inches for my placket. So after marking out that line, I decided to create my neckline 3 inches by 3 inches, marked out my shoulder width at 7.5 inches, dropped that shoulder by 1.5 inches, and finally marked out my chest line and armhole line like so. So yeah. After this, I continued with the slanted edge of my fabric to give this a flare look. Then I took all my measurements from the first line I marked out and just measured at different points to the hem of the fabric to create a flare. Now I made an adjustment to the width of the neckline as well. I came down by 1 inch because we want to create an opening at the shoulder line. So I came down by 1 inch, thereby reducing the neckline curve by 1 inch. Just note that. Lastly, I went ahead to cut out the front fabric. Now here is what I cut out. I think this will help explain what I just said further. So here I'm using my front fabric as a pattern for the back, but remember that the back won't have a placket, right? So I just placed it this way, removing the 2 inches at the center front from the back. So for the back as well, I need some adjustments. So I just marked the top of my pattern all over again. Remember, it is 1 inch away from where this front neckline is starting from. So this will allow me actually create the back neckline. I still use the same 3 inches in width, but then the depth of half an inch. So here I am now cutting out, still removing 1 inch from the neckline measurement for the back. So I went ahead to cut out the armhole and also the slanted side part of this dress on the back pattern exactly the same way. Here is the hem of the front pattern, and I also cut it exactly the same way with the back. So here I am just measuring the circular hemline. This is like an arc of a circle. So that is the measurement I used to create this flare. So what I did for this flare was to create two 360-degree flare. So one 360-degree flare for the front, another 360-degree flare for the back, and I added a little bit of ease so that I can do some tiny pleats. There's already a detailed tutorial on the channel on how to create different degrees of flare. If you're interested, I'll link it up above and in the description box. Now it is also necessary for you to measure the armhole, this slanted armhole of our halter neck flare dress, okay, because for this piece I'm creating flounce for the armhole. I promise you I recorded every step for this video, but life happens, right? So let's go back to explaining. Now here is the placket, and I'm just using a velcro on this placket because I wanted to have a seamless finishing. So first I measured 1.5 inch away from the center front and attached this 1 inch wide velcro. What I want to do is to fold this at the end of the day with and then use a hemming glue to hold it down. Just watch this. So I folded half an inch inward and the other 1 inch. Remember that the velcro is 1.5 inch away, right? So I made this double fold, half an inch, 1 inch, like so. Then I went ahead to use a hemming gum to hold it down. I didn't use a seam again. Now I'm able to use the wrong side of this fabric because it looks good both ways, so I don't need to cut another fabric for placket or try using another color or anything. So I just wanted to make use of these two colors. Now this is what we have. This is on one side of the front piece, very neat and without a seam showing. So that way, even when you look at the finished dress, you won't even know there is a closure there. So the next thing I want to do is to sew the softer the harder part of the velcro on the other side of the front piece. So I folded the placket towards the front for this one. That's half an inch and then 1 inch, like so. I know we left 2 inches, but you need that extra half an inch for the overlap. I hope you understand me. So now I'm going to be placing the other part of my velcro on this front and sewing the two sides. For this one you don't need to hide anything because after all it's going to be on the inside, it's not going to show on the outside. So here I am going ahead to stitch my velcro on the placket. Now here is what we have. It looks good on both sides and you can see how neat it looks. Okay, yeah. So now this is what you have when you place the the right side on the left side of this, and it just closes perfectly. I like the contrast that these two colors create. It is not much, it just blends into each other. So here is the back piece, and I'll be stitching our side seam by 1 inch, which was the allowance I added along the side. So after this is done, I'll place this on a dress form so I can properly measure the width of the flounce I need to create. Yeah, I know we took a measurement before, but I ended up not even using that because I needed the flounce to go over the arm like so. So I marked 7 inches from the top of the neckline to indicate where I will branch into a sleeve. Do you understand? So 7 inches for the back and also for the front, and every other part will just be on the arm as a sleeve, sort of. So here I created my flounce. Now there is a detailed video on the channel on how to create a flounce. I created this flounce by multiplying the measurement I took by about 2, or was it half? I'm not sure at this point, but I needed to create like pleats on mine, so I had excess that I could pleat. But you don't have to pleat anyways, you can just sew your flounce directly on the dress. So here I am pinning my flounce on the dress gradually, and once I got to the 7 inches mark, I stopped pleating on the dress and moved over to the arm. Okay, so just watch this. Once I was done with the pleating, I went ahead to confirm that my measurement was correct. Now, if you don't have a dress form, you can simply put it on and take that measurement, bring down the dress on the table and do all of this, then take it back, put it on again and all that. So here I'm measuring the width of the neckline. We'll do that later, guys. But remember that we have like extra 1 inch that we took away from the shoulder, right? So don't forget that, because when you are taking the measurement for your collar, your mandarin collar, you're going to add that extra 2 inches on the collar on fold, so that's extra 4 inches. Okay, it is a lot, so you don't want to miss that. Now here is my flounce. I was done doing all my pleats right here and I was satisfied with it, so it is time to sew. So now I'll be using the stretchy part of my fabric to create a piping for this. You guys know how we do it here, right? We like neat finishing. So once again, I'm using the other side of the right side of my fabric this time, just to create a contrast between the flounce and the piping. So here I stitched by 1/2 inch, trimmed off the allowance, then folded my strip in such a way that once I stitch, you cannot see the seam on the right side, just a very neat stitch. Now I'll go ahead to stitch at this point in such a way that my seam will hold the other side of the strip without showing on the right side. So I'm stitching on exactly my seam line, okay, in between the two colors you see right here, just in between them right there. Okay, so this is what I have on the wrong side. And while stitching, once you get to the armhole, you just the 7 inches mark, you just notch and then continue without the dress. So what I'll be doing here is to fold this leftover of my armhole twice. You can still make use of a bias strip, or you still piping that side separately, but that was what I did. So on the right side here, this is what you have. This is what I meant when I said you won't see the seam properly. You can see it's clean. That's what you should aim for. So here I am stitching the other part of the armhole. This is by 1/4 inch because I folded the 1/2 inch seam allowance twice to achieve this. I didn't make use of piping. Now this is what the remnant of my armhole looks like. Not bad. So guys, remember that I had taken the width of my neckline earlier on, right? I'm just redoing it here, and I added additional 2 inches for the front, additional 2 inches for the back, because we cut out 1 inch initially. Do you remember that? Yeah. So now it's time to work on our mandarin collar. You're going to love the fit of this if you follow this method, guys. So I had to open up my velcro like so, took the measurement again. You don't want to be wrong with the measurement, because once that is wrong, it's going to be very difficult for you to get things right. So I took that measurement and I did the same thing for the back as well. The width for the front was 5 inches. With that extra 1 inch, that's 6 inches on fold. That's for one side of the front. While for the back, the measurement I took was 4 inches. With the extra 1 inch we cut out, that is 5 inches. Sorry, okay, yeah, 5 inches. So I went on to my paper and I put this paper on fold. You don't need to put your paper on fold, but just in case you're working on fabric, remember to put it on fold, and we're going to draft our collar. So the folded side is the center back. So I took the measurement for that center back, which was 5 inches. That's 4 plus 1, right? And from the point, that's the shoulder point, now I marked the next one, which was 6 inches for the front. So at the front, I raised this by 3 inches. Okay, so some people usually raise by 1 inch, but sometimes it doesn't sit properly on the neckline, so I made use of 3 inches. So I connected my new marking to the shoulder. This point at the center is just the shoulder point. Okay, so I'm retaking my measurement here just to be sure. So from the center front right here, it is 6 inches, and the other side is 5 inches. For the height of my collar, I decided to go with 1.1 one quarter, one quarter. That's 1.25. So guys, I did that. You can make use of 1 inch, but I realized that sometimes it looks smaller than the 1 inch. That's why I did this, added that extra 1/4 of an inch. So here I am marking that height, and I'll go ahead to replicate my first curve. So we have our curvy collar like so. Now on the second curve I just drew, I am marking my measurement again. So I marked the shoulder point, and on the side, rather than marking 6 inches from the shoulder point, I took 5 inches, just so I can then create a curve at the center front, because that area is the center front. I mentioned earlier on that the part on fold is the center back. So right here, I'll take my curve and create a curve for the center front like so. Now you can go ahead to cut out your collar, place it on fabric, and then mark out your seam allowances, and you have your collar piece. Don't forget to notch the shoulder point on both sides of your collar piece. So for this, I went ahead to cut out my fusible interfacing. I didn't make use of the heart type, but if you're going to make use of the heart type, don't include the same allowance in your cutting. But for this one, because it's kind of soft and friendly, I added to both sides of my collar, and I didn't have to exclude the same allowance. So here I'm notching the center for both sides of my collar. So I cut 2 pieces, like you can see. So here we are going to be joining these 2 pieces together from one side like so onto the other. Then I'll tell you what the next step is. So just go ahead and sew by 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure you take note of that curve. It's necessary that you maintain the curve. Once you're done sewing, you can go ahead to trim off the excess allowance, or you notch, then turn it inside out and give this collar a fantastic press. Now it is time to attach this collar to the dress, and I'm starting at the back, of course. So I'm notching the center back so I can place the center back of my collar against this notch. Okay, so here I'm sewing one piece of the collar. Remember, we cut out 2, right? One is acting as a lining or facing, while the other is the part you're going to see from the right side. So I am using the, let's call it the facing. Okay, I'm using this, I'm sewing this first, okay, and I like to pin. If you don't pin, guys, I don't know. So yes, I like to pin this all around. So once I got to that point, I did the same thing for the front. So I went straight to the center front of my dress and also the center front of the collar and started pinning all around. But then I noticed that once we got towards the shoulder line, we had like 1 inch left. What happened was that the piping took about half an inch away from that 2 inches opening at the shoulder, so we had about 1 inch left for the opening. So once I'm done with all of my pinning and I'm satisfied, I'll go ahead to the sewing machine and sew the dress on the collar by half an inch. Now here's what I have. Next I'll go ahead to fold the other side of my collar, just the half an inch seam allowance. First I'll need to hold this down with pins because it can be really challenging to work with, but go ahead, pin all through, align the center front and the shoulder lines together so that your collar lays flat. Then go ahead and give this a good press before sewing. Here is mine after pressing. While folding the other side of my collar, I made sure that it extended beyond the seam line. Now I'm going to treat this just the same way I treated my piping. I want an invisible seam. So from the right side, you're not going to see my thread lines, but then as I'm sewing in between these two fabrics, my needle will hold down the other side of the collar. Okay, so that way we have a neat finishing both inside out. Now the only part where I'll be manipulating a little bit is the space we have between the front and back armhole right here. So I'm going to be top stitching that part of the dress, because of course we can't make use of the same method here because it doesn't have a fabric layer that you can work with that way. If you have followed the steps this far, this is what you should have on the inside of your collar, and you can see the slight manipulation I did on this piece. You can see the thread because what we have there is a top stitching both on the left and on the right. Now I noticed that the side of this dress is slightly longer than I wanted it to be. I wanted that circular look. It looks circular, but then when you put it on, it's just a little longer along the side. So I went ahead to measure 4 inches on the side and I trimmed out the edge of this circle and blended it into the other parts of the hem. Now I'm going ahead to attach the second layer of flare to this. You don't have to pleat this particular layer, you can just sew directly on your fabric, but I did pleat mine just a little bit. The pleats are actually very sparse on this dress. Once again, I made use of the different sides of my fabric just to create contrast. Now here is our finished dress. It looks really pretty and it even fits better on me. I went ahead to attach a press button on the center front of this collar and then to overlock using the industrial overlocker all the flare edges of my dress. With this, we have come to the end of this tutorial. If you enjoyed watching this, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. See you in the next video. Bye bye.